Today I'll be showing you a craft called tissue paper roses. This is the craft kit that will be in the lobby. This will show you how to do that craft. So the first step is to gather some scissors, a pen, and you'll also need some glue. So those are not included in your craft kit. You're also going to need your template, which is included in your kit. It's a spiral and a piece of tissue paper. You should have several in your kit. And you're just going to take the tissue paper and cover your spiral with it. Cover up that spiral template. So this is where your pen comes in. You're just going to lightly trace the spiral onto the tissue paper. And your handout has some information about how rose petals are arranged in a spiral. It's a very efficient way of storing all those petals. It's something that starts out very small, very compact. It's actually a special spiral, the way those petals are arranged, called the Fibonacci spiral, that occurs in nature. For example, on pine cones or sunflowers, the seeds are arranged in a Fibonacci spiral. We're just drawing a regular spiral on our paper, but I thought I would include that information in your kit. Okay, so step 2 is to cut out this oval that we have here. And I'm just going to be careful to cut a little below the ink so it doesn't come off on my rose. Cut out the oval just inside the ink line. I'm actually doing this in the Coddington room today. And it's interesting because the Coddington room is named after the donors who helped us build this room in 2005, Jane and Chan Coddington. And Chan Coddington's grandfather owned the Coddington greenhouses in New Providence, which employed lots of people in town, and they had just acres of greenhouses. They were one of the largest rose growers in the country in the first part of the 20th century. And I've included in your kit a photograph from one of their celebrity days. That's how they promoted their roses. They had these gorgeous photos in the Mason room at the back of the library is the Historical Society's room, and they have just beautiful photos of like old singers and actresses holding these gorgeous bouquets of roses from the Coddington greenhouses. Okay, so our oval has been cut out. Now we're just going to cut along the line here to create a spiral. Sometimes it's easier just to turn your tissue paper. Okay, so here's the part that I really needed to make a video to show you how to do this. It's hard to show this with just photographs. You're going to take the center of the spiral and you're just going to fold it over a bit. Okay, so this is going to be the center of our rose, and we're just going to make a really tight circle. I'm going to wrap this around in a circle because the middle of roses are very tightly, the petals are very tight in those roses. They're very small circles. So once you've got it wrapped around a couple times, you're just going to pinch it at the bottom of that, where the spiral started. And we're going to keep pinching that as we go along. I'd also like to start just kind of taking a little bit of the tissue and making a little fold down at the bottom. Kind of gathering it here at the bottom. Because circles are not, roses are not just these concentric circles. That would be kind of boring. Okay. So this is the center. It doesn't look like much so far. See how this is much lower down than here? We want the top of the rose to be level, so we're just going to pull up that spiral. And it may be that the piece you have coming along the spiral at some point is going to be too tall, so then you're going to pull it down. You just want that top of the rose to always be level. So I'm pinching at the bottom. I want to make a little narrow base because we're going to be putting our rose inside of a straw. So we want a little bit of a base there that would fit into a straw. You just wrinkle it a bit here and try to keep that top level. Now the bottom of the spiral gets a little twisted. You can just untwist it if it's getting annoying. I'm going to pull this up. See how it's a little low down here, so I'm going to go like this. So we're just going to keep ruffling and pinching. And the spiral makes this craft really easy. I have a little bit of ink here that's showing. I'm just going to snip that so that doesn't show up in my final rose. So that's the middle of our rose. You can start to get a little looser every time you go around. It's up to you how in bloom you want your rose to be. But you do want it to be somewhat in bloom. You know, this craft isn't going to look nice as a rosebud. Okay, so I've got that base. And these roses actually they could be used to make a wreath if you don't want to stick them on straws. Oops, I just ripped it, but that's okay. No one's going to see that. I'm going to be careful not to rip the final go around though. I don't want it to show on the final edge of the rose. So see how that's becoming rose-like, and you can give it a little tweak, try to ruffle it up. Now the roses in the sample that I made, I actually made some mistakes, so I just unrolled it very carefully, and it was even better the second time because it was more wrinkled. So feel free to carefully untwist and unfold your rose and start over if you don't like how yours is turning out. And the sample's a different color because I just used what I had at home. Okay, so here's a piece that's a little too tall for it's a little above the level of the rose, so I'm going to fold it over. And that's great because roses do curl at the edges. So I'm going to leave that. Okay, so here's where I really want to start wrapping more loosely. When we get towards the end here, I don't want this to just be a rose blossom. I want it to be a rosebud. I want it to be a whole blooming rose here. So just start to do it a little more loosely as you go around. The middle starts popping up, you can push it back down. So that's a bit too loose, so I'm going to tighten it up a little. And just kind of eyeball it as you go. And your kit has enough for several roses. I believe I have up to 10 for you, 10 pieces of paper. I don't have quite that many straws, so you can either cut your straws in half like I did and have 10 flowers, or you could have 6 flowers with those long straw tips. Okay, so here's another flower where the edge is folded over, another petal. Okay. Just keep wrapping. And the thing about roses is that just one rose, it's never as nice as many roses together. So if you put this rose with a bunch of others, they're going to all look better. Okay. I'm just going to take a little snip here, and I'm going to glue this onto the rest of the rose. This is probably a bottle of glue we've had for ages at the library. Anyway, so once you get that glued, you're going to just twist the bottom. So basically when we're wrapping, we're focusing on what the top looks like. Then when you get to the end, you can think about trying to make it look more like a rose from the side. The side view is never quite as good as the top view. That's why I like the short stems or putting them on a wreath, because you don't see the sides as much. Okay, so let's just pretend I glued that here. And that's our rose. Our next step is to take one of the straws. Mine is already cut in half. So what you're going to do is cut like a 1/2 inch here, and then here at the top to make basically 2 sides of the straw that fold down, and we're going to slot the rose into that. It's so simple. So my rose fits. Now that I know it will fit in there, I'm going to take it out. Let's just pretend the glue bottle's working and put a little glue on each side of your rose, the base of your rose, here and here. And then you're going to slot it in here so that the glue is touching the two green sides. And then you're going to just hold it down to make sure it really gets a good grip on the rose. And that's your rose.